In 1990, the World Wrestling Federation wasn't just the biggest wrestling show on earth. It was an empire built on charisma, ego, and a whole lot of backstage politics. But when WWF Wrestlemania Challenge hit the NES, that empire's backstage drama bled right into an 8-bit ring. Behind the choppy animations and limited sprites was a story about creative control and who really ran the WWF when Hulkamania started to fade. The evolution of how this game came to be appears to parallel the chaos and internal struggle Vince and the rest of the creative team of the WWF was having to steer his company into the 90s, while at the same time possibly clinging too hard to the 80s golden era, including last-minute title screen artwork changes and even a complete pivot away from a confirmed different video game title and theme altogether. So throw that winged eagle belt over your shoulder if you have one. Today we're stepping into the pixelated squared circle to uncover the secrets and history of WWF Wrestlemania Challenge. Let's get started. It's 1990, developed by Rare, yes, the same Rare we talk about frequently, and published by LJN. And yes, I know, I'm covering another LJN game. I'm definitely in an LJN rut. WrestleMania Challenge was the second WWF game for the NES, following 1989's WrestleMania, which wasn't received the best by fans. So Rare went back to the drawing board. The result? A new isometric view, reminiscent of another one of Rare's NES classics, RC Pro-Am. There's a solid wrestling roster and a surprisingly deep attempt to simulate actual wrestling strategy, with stamina, tags, and finishers. But underneath all of that, the character lineup revealed something far more interesting, a snapshot of who mattered in Vince McMahon's world. Notice who's here, and who's missing. Bret Hart? Not yet big enough. Jake the Snake Roberts? Maybe politically out of favor? Hulk Hogan? Of course, he's front and center. Even though by 1990, the WWF was not so quietly grooming the Ultimate Warrior to take his place. The early 90s WWF locker room was like Game of Thrones with body oil. The Ultimate Warrior was getting the push of a lifetime, Andre the Giant's health was failing, and Hulk Hogan was clinging to the top of the mountain. WrestleMania Challenge subtly reflected that transition. Even the artwork for the box and cartridge give misleading cues as to who is the top dog in the WWF. With Hulk being front and center with the largest image, and the current WWF champion, the Ultimate Warrior, having similar size imaging with other superstars lower on the wrestling card. But let me just say, I was not a personal Hogan hater back in the day. I know there seems like there's a lot of negative talk here about Hogan, but I mean, I was a definitive Hulkamaniac back then. I don't want you to get it twisted that I'm hating on Hulk. But it also hinted at a real world shift. The WWF was becoming less about the wrestlers and more about the brand. In 1990, Vince McMahon was consolidating power, not just over TV contracts and merchandise, but over how his wrestlers were portrayed everywhere, even in video games. Rare, the British studio behind WrestleMania Challenge, didn't actually have much say in the roster or its presentation. They were handed a strict set of likenesses and moves approved directly by WWF executives. The gameplay of WrestleMania Challenge takes the squared circle to an isometric view that no other wrestling game dared to try at the time. You take control of one of the WWF's biggest superstars. Every wrestler shares the same basic moves: punches, kicks, and body slams. The 9 wrestling superstars that were ultimately featured are Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Macho King Randy Savage, the Ultimate Warrior, Big Boss Man, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Ravishing Rick Rude, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and yourself? Okay, nobody really asked for that one. You weren't playing as Hogan or Savage. You were inserted into their world. A meta nod to how you, the fan, were part of the spectacle, but well before the days you could create and customize your own character. But you're basically forced to play as yourself if you want to beat the game. Meanwhile, Andre the Giant was included despite barely being able to physically wrestle at the time. Why? Because he was still under contract, and Vince wanted him immortalized as a WWF property before his retirement. But I will say that Andre the Giant is iconic, and I have no gripes with him being included in this game. This roster wasn't just a lineup. It was a power map of the WWF's political landscape in 1990. It mirrors exactly how the WWF was phasing out its golden era and entering a more corporate, character-driven phase. From here on out, every wrestler was a brand, something to be trademarked, licensed, and packaged. And obviously LJN was no stranger to WWF with the success of their toy line. Wrestling fans know how important entrance music is, and I feel WrestleMania Challenge did an excellent job bringing the wrestlers' themes to the NES. Let's check out a few of them. As a fan, it was great to see some included impressive 8-bit finishers for the wrestlers in this game too. But I will say that I'm shocked that Hogan only got a big boot move and no leg drop for his finisher, because that move is iconic. Although I will have to say that Hogan's tan is on point in this game. I know earlier it was discussed about Andre the Giant's physical limitations at this time. There's actually a glitch in the game that may be related. If you notice, anytime you happen to exit the ring as Andre the Giant, you literally cannot get back in. But I personally hope this was just a glitch in the game and this wasn't intentional, because it's kinda cruel and I love Andre. There's a significant variety in the gameplay. They have singles matches, tag matches, and even Survivor Series style wrestling. But I did always find it strange that there was Survivor Series mode in a game that is supposed to be centered around WrestleMania, so why would you bring in elements of another type of pay-per-view? But there's actually good reason for that. Initially, this game was supposed to be a WWF Survivor Series game for the NES. You can see the early title screen here, and this game was confirmed to be happening as late as August 1990 when there was an article in Electronic Gaming Monthly previewing the upcoming Survivor Series game. But I am glad that they pivoted this, because that title screen was of a promo photo of SummerSlam 1988. So to make a Survivor Series game centered around something from 1988 that would be releasing in 1990 would have felt quite stale. I will have to say that this is one of my favorite NES manuals. It is packed full of retro goodness, and it is a hefty manual. It even has a WWF trivia section, which I actually knew all of the answers still to this day, and I'd like to see your answers in the comments too. As a wrestling fan, I had a sudden curiosity while researching for this video. Since the Ultimate Warrior was shown to be the WWF champion in this game, which released not too long after WrestleMania 6 when he defeated Hulk Hogan for the title, was it possible that the game developers were aware that he would be champion before the rest of the wrestling world knew? But that's the thing, WrestleMania Challenge would have been in active development months before its release, meaning Rare and the higher-ups at WWF were helping code, design, and package the game while Hulk Hogan was still champ and the face of the company. So how did Rare know? Did someone inside Titan Towers quietly give them the scoop before the rest of the world knew that the Ultimate Warrior was destined to win? It's a wild thought that Vince McMahon may have broken kayfabe not for the media, not for the boys in the locker room, but for a video game. I know this makes for some fun drama, but I don't think that Vince McMahon leaked the finish to WrestleMania 6 to Rare prematurely. It seems this game's direction and theming underwent multiple last-minute revisions, with even the early title screen image from the back of the box originating from a SummerSlam 1990 photo, which was taken well past the time that the Ultimate Warrior became champion. Here's a weird twist about this game that you probably never knew. In Japan, WrestleMania Challenge wasn't even published by LJN. Instead, the Famicom version was handled by a totally different company called Hot B, the same folks behind the Black Bass and the Blue Marlin. That's why the Japanese release didn't hit shelves until March 1992, more than a year after the US launch. And if you also notice, it's even different artwork on the cartridge and the box art. The cartridge art for the Famicom game is the same that's on the Super WrestleMania game for the Super Nintendo.
And did you notice something about that WrestleMania Challenge commercial we've seen a few times in this video? This was apparently the European commercial for the game that was a reskinned version of the previous original WrestleMania game. You can even see the WrestleMania drunk Uncle Hogan box marked out by the TV.
WWF Wrestlemania Challenge isn't just a weird, choppy NES wrestling game. It's a moment when the WWF was changing from a show about wrestlers to a machine about marketing. And in that process, the real politics of wrestling, who won, who lost, and who got pushed, leaked right into the pixels. And if you grew up yelling, "Ooh, yeah!" into a plastic NES controller, you know what to do. Hit like, drop a comment, and tell me some of your favorite NES or any old school wrestling memories. Thank you for all of the cherished childhood memories, Hulkster. Let's be honest, you wouldn't even have cared enough to click on this video if it weren't for Hulk. There will never be another Hulk Hogan. Rest in peace, brother, and Hulkamania will live forever.
Special shout out to Kanye, West Virginia for finding Mullet Boy first in our last A Nightmare on Elm Street Secrets in History video.
Till next time, guys. G3 out.